Live from Austin is Governor Greg Abbott.
Governor, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Jumping right in, last week
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you all.
Last week you agreed with Attorney General Ken Paxton's guidance about schools, saying that school officials should be the ones to decide when and how schools should reopen. Many school districts in the Houston area plan to open virtually, and the TEA could allow up to 8 weeks of online-only instruction. But if necessary, Governor, would you allow for districts to continue the school year online for a longer amount of time, even if it's the whole semester?
So that alternative that you just mentioned is exactly the type of flexibility that the TEA has built in. To make clear, what we did last week was just to reiterate exactly what the TEA had said just a couple of weeks ago, and that is to make sure that first and foremost, the health and safety of students, teachers, and parents is going to be protected, but second, that all school districts in the entire state of Texas are going to have the flexibility they need to make sure they deliver the education platform in the safest possible way, including if that means doing it remotely. So what school districts have the capability of doing is to begin the school year first, whenever they want to begin the school year, but second, when they do begin, to give them the flexibility to continue that remote education for up to 8 weeks. And then at that point in time, the TEA can look at school districts on a case-by-case basis, knowing that what may be happening in Harris County could be completely different than what is happening in Harrison County in another region in the state of Texas, and hence that level of flexibility is needed.
Governor, State Representative Armando Wally, Harris County's recovery czar, says an additional $200 to $300 million will be needed to help students bridge that technology divide. Will the state send additional resources to ensure that students have the equipment that they need and the internet connectivity that they need?
So the state of Texas just stepped up, providing $200 million that was matched by $200 million by local schools. That's $400 million altogether. And then we worked collaboratively with all of the network providers as well as device providers to make sure we're providing more than 1 million devices as well as 500,000 network connectivity at the local level to make sure that if schools do need to open up through the remote education process, the students who don't currently have access to it should have that access by the time the school year begins.
All right, so many folks here in our area struggling to pay their bills and pay their rent. Both Harris County and the city of Houston have announced programs to help residents who are struggling to pay their rent. Will you consider another eviction moratorium?
So the statewide eviction moratorium was actually imposed by the Texas Supreme Court. The Texas Supreme Court always maintains that flexibility, but separate from that, what we're seeing with regard to eviction moratoriums, they are being issued at the local level. But that said, as you all were discussing right before I came on, as we speak, the United States Senate is working with the United States House on programs that will, for one, potentially address evictions, but also potentially address the economic needs of Texans as well as people across the entire country.
We want to know more about the CARES Act funding from the federal government to help states deal with the pandemic.
Governor, how have you spent that money thus far, and how else do you plan to spend it?
So one of the primary ways is to make sure that we are spending the CARES Act funding to address COVID-19, which was the intended purpose of it. Let me give you some examples, and that is we've been using CARES Act funding to make sure that we have dramatically increased the amount of testing taking place in the state of Texas. Before the CARES Act, we were testing 20 to 25,000 people a day. Now we're testing about 60,000 people a day. But another thing that we're doing for example, is the state of Texas is using the CARES Act funding to go out and buy the PPE as well as the other supplies needed for all of the schools across the entire state of Texas to make sure that when schools do open up, they will have the PPE necessary to make sure that they are able to provide that education in a very safe setting.
This pandemic has kept families apart from their loved ones with respect to being able to visit them in nursing homes. It's been 4 months since they've been able to visit loved ones there. Are you considering easing visitation restrictions, and what needs to happen in order to get that done?
So we do want to, and we are considering easing visitation restrictions, and we've developed some strategies to make sure that that is going to be able to happen. Understand, however, that our key focal point is to make sure that in Texas, we don't replicate the disaster that we saw in New York State that led to the death of so many people, and hence we're trying to prevent the importation of COVID-19 into the nursing home setting, and that's exactly why we've had in place the standard that we have. It's also exactly why Texas has so far fewer deaths than New York has, because we have not gone that pathway of subjecting people in the nursing home setting to having COVID-19 imported into the setting. We are going back as we speak right now to increase testing in nursing homes across the state of Texas to make sure we are able to continue to protect seniors, but at the very same time, we are working on strategies to make sure that their loved ones are going to have a chance to see them.
We certainly